Now then, folks, here is the new Snake Eyes and Timber. It arrived just earlier today. I don't know how else to describe it other than the new Snake Eyes and Timber, because there's no other kind of identifying features in the title on the box. I mean, obviously, it's the windowless packaging one. It's the one with the combat trousers with the kind of browns and greens rolled in to the uniform, but they've not kind of labelled it up as, like, I don't know, something edition or out to, there's no identifying signifier, but you can see on the screen which one it is. And I have to confess, this is the first Snake Eyes I own, considering I've been a G.I. Joe Classified Series collector for fairly early on. I missed a little bit in the early days, but fairly early on, I haven't picked up a previous Snake Eyes. I'm a little bit of a weirdo, I think, because he's not particularly my favourite character, but I do feel like any G.I. Joe collection has to have a Snake Eyes, and when I saw this one, it appealed to me greatly, because I like the visored version of the character. I'm one of them. Also, with the combat pants and the sort of green and brown colour scheme rolled into the image of Snake Eyes here, he fits the kind of shelf display aesthetic that I'm going for better than the others, I feel. So I went in because I thought, well, I've got to have a Snake Eyes. You have to have a Snake Eyes. And this one looks and feels better to me. So there we go. So let's take a look at the packaging then. You can see that it is windowless packaging. We've got this artwork scene on the front of the box here with Snake Eyes and Timber. It's a kind of Arctic sort of scene, bit of Northern Lights going on in the background there. Either that or at the far tip of Scotland, perhaps. But if I was a betting man, I'd say we're looking at somewhere in Scandinavia there, perhaps. It's good, it's nice, it's a lovely piece of painted artwork, there's no two ways about it, but I have to admit that I don't find the shelf presence of this quite as striking as I have done with, what was the other windowless G.I. Joe I got recently? Oh, Sergeant Slaughter. Sergeant Slaughter seems to have a lot more colour, a lot more variety, and a bit more kind of box lift than this appears to have, which is a shame because it is, as I say, a gorgeous piece of painted artwork, and I like the way they're breaking the frame here with Timber's paw, for example. It's a lovely little touch just to give it a bit of dimension. I suppose it's the colour choices because of the blue motif in the G.I. Joe Classified kind of branding. The bluiness of the painting is just kind of blended in, perhaps. Maybe that's what the issue is. But it's not a problem with the quality of the image. I just don't think it's got the shelf presence. But there we go. And then there's a digital render down in the corner here. That's the front. Now let's have a look at the back. So here we are. We've got the digital render, the same one as on the front. We've got the figure here, and it's showing off all the various accessories and goodies that are included. So you can see all the guns, the sword, the neckerchief, the swappable hands, the dagger, Timber's spare head, and an interesting little addition I noticed. They've now started adding the figure heights on the back of the box there, which is a curious addition. But there you go. So that's the back of the box. Then on the side, you can see it's the data card and the figure number. The data card is also on the back, along the bottom here. So he's got a scary skull, a ninja sword, because he's a ninja. He's got, you can't see him. He's too fast and too shady to be seen. And then what's that? Like a... I've no idea what that is. Like a thrown ninja star, maybe. But there you go. There's the data card on the side and on the back. And then on the top, we've got the number, the G.I. Joe Classified star thing. And that's it. That's the packaging. That's what you get. So let's get this bad boy open. I'm going to pop him out from the top here. And it looks like we've got the figures in like a little cardboard tray there, and then there's the weapons locker design thing here with the figures number on it. Oh, and their name on the front there, look. So that's nice. So we'll start with the figures, although they've got these little stringy tie wrap things in. I'll be back in a sec. There we are, a few quick scissor snips later, and we've got the figures loosened up. I'll just pop them there while I get into this weapons locker. And in the weapons locker here... Oh, that's taped up. Where's my scissors gone? Right, here we go. In here. And what we got? Oh, it's like all the little... Oh, there's the paperwork. Look. Paperwork. Yeah, they're all in the little cardboard, little holdy envelope things. Oh, and there's a bag of some stuff too. Oh, yeah. Is that everything? Yeah. Now, let's go in on the bag first. Oh, loads of stuff in there. My word. Just check it's all empty. Yeah, there we go. So we've got the neckerchief. There's like an open palm ninja hand there. We've got a hand with a ninja star, a knife, a silencer. We've got the changeable head on Timber, the Uzi, the 9mm pistol, the submachine gunny thing, which the Alley Viper had there. That's got a removable magazine, I think. Yeah, it has. And let's clip the tape on these. And then in this one, what we got in this one? Oh, that's the rifle. Again, with a changeable magazine. That's another Alley Viper reuse, isn't it? I think. And then in this one, oh, right, that's his sword sheath. That looks kind of cool. I like the look of that. Got a peg on it, right. Got a peg on it to go on his back. Then in this one, we've got the, like the grappling gun launcher. Again, more Alley Viper reuse, isn't it? Oh, my word. Were you an Alley Viper in a previous life there, Snake Eyes? Have a look. And there's his sword. Oh, my days. Look at this. That's a lot of goodies. It ought to be really for the price, but there you go. There we are then. There's Snake Eyes. There's Timber. And there is an absolute wealth of stuff to play around with this guy here. So I'm going to go away and have lots of man-child playtime with this guy. And I'll be back in a couple of days to share some review thoughts. I always can't resist the urge to start playing straight away. But finish your video voiceover first, Chris. Yes, there we go. There's Snake Eyes, there's Timber, there's all the goodies. I'm going to go away and have some playtime with this fig, and I'll be back in a couple of days to share my thoughts on how he looks, how he feels, and all these goodies. Lots of added value there. So see you in a couple of days, folks, but you'll get it in 3, 2, 1. And here we are. Here is Snake Eyes, and of course, here is his trusty companion Timber. Out of box. You've just watched the unboxing section of the video, and I've been away. I've had a play. I've posed them up. I've had them in some photographs. I've got them on displays with my other G.I. Joe Classified Series figures. And now, after having a bit of hands-on time with the pair of them, I'm ready to share a few review thoughts because, you know, I've actually spent some time with them now to have some review thoughts. And so, if you're new around these parts, very simple structure to the review section of the video. I call it the 3 A's. First A, we're going to talk about the aesthetic of the figures. How do they look? Do they look like how I want them to look? How much detail is there in there? What's the sculpting like? What's the paint jobs like? What's the texture and depth like? And all that good stuff. Then into the second A, we're going to talk articulation. How do they move? How posable are this pair? Are they meeting my expectations with regards to getting them posed up? And then third and finally, the last A is accessories and added value. What else is coming with them? What's adding to the cash cost that we're forking out for luxury double packs like this? Is there enough stuff in there to make a difference to the price? Are the accessories good? Do they help us tell some stories with our figures? And with all that said and done, hopefully the thoughts I share today will help you make your mind up as to whether Snake Eyes and Timber is a figure box set that you'd like to get for yourself. So let's not dilly-dally around, let's get straight into it, and let's move into the aesthetics section of the review. So I'm pretty sure, as far as the look of this version of Snake Eyes goes, our man Lenny over there in the G.I. Joe Classified team at Hasbro, we love you, Lenny, made mention in one of the many streams leading up to the eventual release of the figure that the inspiration for this one, I think he said, was the G.I. Joe Renegades cartoon series. I don't think it was when they did the digital render. I think maybe it was the stream where they actually had the figure in hand on the turntable to show him off. Now, I can't speak to that a great deal. I don't know the cartoon. I'm not very familiar with it. It's not part of my G.I. Joe experience. I'm a child of the 80s, and my G.I. Joe experience is the Marvel UK Action Force comic book reprints. I'm a comic book guy. However, all that said, this version of Snake Eyes, I have to say, I know I mentioned it in the unboxing section, is the one that has visually appealed to me the most to date. And so this is the first one I've picked up. Plus the fact I'm not really as into the character as I think many others are out in the community. Controversially, he says. That's probably going to get me flamed in the comments. But yeah, I just never was quite into the character as much as I was into others. Now, I don't really know why. I can't put my finger on why this one has stood out to me more comparably. I think maybe the fact that the others were all black and the design on the other helmet appeals to me less, whereas I like the kind of more modern visor style thing, and the fact that he's got these kind of grey bits of combat gear and the greeny brown combat trousers perhaps gives him a little bit of something more modern, more cohesive to what I've got going on with my G.I. Joe display, which I know, before the regular viewers are on to me, I know that's a little bit of hypocritical doublespeak on my part, because I've mentioned before how I find the more idiosyncratic and colourful and random weird characters appealing a lot of the times, and now I'm saying, but I like this guy because he looks kind of like a normal military dude. I'm allowed to be two things at the same time. Leave me alone. But yeah, I think that's possibly why, but I've not really been able to pin it down in my head as to what it is about this one that appeals to me more than the previous Snake Eyes. Except for maybe availability, actually, because, you know, the very first early one's super hard to get hold of. So yeah, but besides that, there's a lot to like about the figure for sure. I use the phrase texture and depth a great deal in my reviews. That's something that I always look for in my figures and appeals to me greatly, and that's definitely the case with this Snake Eyes. We've got some lovely stuff going on, like the leathery look of the kind of combat gear that he's wearing, the more shiny aspects to the body armor elements on his shoulders and just here below the combat gear. The metallic paint job on the visor is a lovely touch. The texture of the straps and belts in this kind of canvas style belt design. The fact that there's some nice neat paint apps in there as well. The grenades have been painted black. There's this little Articulation symbol here on his combat armor there. Nice neat paint app job there. The buckles and the Articulation symbol here on the belt. Love all that. Lots of pouches, the rivets in the body armor. You know, there's just loads of little touches all spread out throughout the figure's design that give it that textural feeling. And that carries on down into the legs. You know, the combat trousers have got that fabric texture look and feel about them. The knee pads look like they've been, you know, made like real knee pads to be out of a more resilient material for use, you know, when getting down on your knees. And the boots, they look like they've been made out of leather. They've got this kind of leathery look and feel about them. They've got the laces on the front. So all this lovely detail. And it's consistent as well. The canvas look and feel of the strap across his shoulder here is the same as the ones around his waist, as it is around the ones on his thighs, although the ones on his arms aren't in the canvas design. They're like a plain flat plastic. In fact, I have to say, I'm not very keen on these arm straps. I don't really know what they're all about, what purpose they serve. I think I could see myself removing those because I feel like the very plain design of those is in too much contrast to the lovely detail and effort that's been made in other areas. It's also a very solid sculpt in terms of size and shape. They're very good at doing musculature and hands and giving it those nice realistic touches, so that's all wonderful. I'm very minimal in terms of complaints. I might have liked a little bit more detail. It does look a bit plasticky toy on the body armor bit across the top of the body here. Some extra details like the pull rings on the grenades being painted might have been nice, or a better job of these belt buckles. But overall, yeah, there's lots of lovely little finer detail aspects that are very enjoyable and really give the figure a bit of lift off the toy experience, you know? That attention to detail and the textural layers of the Snake Eyes are reflected in the timber as well. We can see here in the face, for example, the head sculpt is really awesome. Nice and neat and tidy, very precise paint apps in the eyes, in the snout, around the jowls here, with a bit of shading there around the mouth. The scar across the snout and the top of the head there. Very, very nice, and also adds to the storytelling with the figure, of course, and I'm always a big fan of being able to have a bit of flavour, a bit of narrative around the figures. It's also in the paws, you can see on the claws there, and on the bottom of the feet. Are they called foot pads? Something like that? Someone will let me know in the comments down below what the perhaps the canine term is for those. But yeah, that's lovely. And then the sculpting itself of the fur is really impressive. Very pleased with the sculpting of the fur. This is, of course, in terms of colour scheme, the white version of the timber figure, whereas the previous one was more kind of grey. I might have liked a bit more of a wash on there or something, but there are sort of, as you squint and look closer, there's little bits of slightly off-white in there, so there's something going on. But yeah, I think timber looks really good in terms of the sculpting, all these kind of unique kind of fur bunches and the tail and stuff. Yeah, very, very good. And it's the same on both sides. Yeah, got a really nice flow to it. I love it. So all the same attention to detail that is in the Snake Eyes figure and in previous G.I. Joe classified figures, of course, is evident in the timber. It's no secret, particularly to regular viewers, that here at MoDXtra Games and Collectibles, we're big supporters of the G.I. Joe classified series line, particularly in terms of its visual identity and the aesthetic elements of the figures. I'm just reviewing them positively time and time and time again. Snake Eyes, he's not quite up to the standard, I would argue, of some of the previous figures we've seen in the line. I do wonder, actually, if the fact that we've got no face sculpt going on is a contributing factor to that, because I do look at him and think, well, my Stalker or my Sergeant Slaughter, or even Storm Shadow with the cutaway aspect of his mask perhaps adds something. Maybe there's something about not being able to see his eyes that's slightly tainting my view, and I wouldn't rate him as highly as I've rated other figures in the series, but I'm still overall pleased, and comparable to other stuff I collect right now, it's positively light years ahead of them. So yeah, I'm into it. And I suppose really when it comes to an aesthetic part of the collection, when it comes to what you're looking for, it just becomes a question of what type of Snake Eyes do I want. I wanted something that lined up a bit more with the kind of contemporary military feel of the figures with a slight nostalgic twist, and that's what I'm getting. And Timber, I think Timber's just outstanding. I think this is a great creature sculpt. There's no two ways about it. I'm very happy with the Timber. So you have to ask yourself, what am I looking for? What do I want from my Snake Eyes? And if you're looking for the more full-on classic ninja look, then this isn't going to do it for you. But if you're like me and you like that modern twist, then yeah, thumbs up. So let's fire through Snake Eyes' articulation. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on it. I'm not going to dwell on articulation because, frankly, it's the traditional standard of G.I. Joe classified articulation, and there's not a lot of obstructions or odd quirks to point out, particularly. The head, it's the standard ball joint at the top, the hinge in the neck, so we've got good down, we've got good up, he's got all the side, all the way round on the Exorcist if you want, it's all there, bit of tilt, and the motion at the top of the head and the bottom of the neck gives it an extra element as well, which is handy when you're trying to get him into more ambitious ninja-style poses. Decent butterfly joint in the shoulder, giving him a bit of shoulder hustle, and again, increasing the kind of pose ability. Hinge in the shoulders to bring him into a T shape there. Swivel on the arm at the bicep and tricep. A pin double elbow that gets up to about there, because his bicep muscle's so big you can't get it all the way. And it's the standard peg hand there, so you've got the swivel on the hand, and then they both have up and down hinges like so, for good kind of weapon posing type stuff. Ab crunch in the main body here, comes all the way forward, comes all the way back. That's really maneuverable, again, which is great with a figure like Snake Eyes, where you're going to be looking to do some kind of sword play kind of poses and stuff. And then we've got swivel in the waist. What I will say is this equipment strap across his chest there, and these two loose belts, they can kind of get in the way and hover up a bit sometimes, but you just got to make sure you line it up before you put him in the pose you're looking for. I suppose it's not as irritating as some of the previous sort of body armors and things have been in terms of the way they obstruct actual movement. Then the legs, I'm pretty sure these are reuse anyway, but they've got the standard G.I. Joe classified drop-down joint, gives a good range of motion in the hip area. Look at that. Look at that. Can kick two red ninjas in the face at the same time. Awesome. Good range of motion forward. It's okay back. Obviously, the arse cheek moulding always gets in the way of that. Swivel there at the top of the thigh. Standard double knee gets you up to about there. And then the hinge and the rocker in the feet, so you can do some more stuff with the way you're standing him, in his different stances and what have you. So, Snake Eyes here is nice and consistent with the rest of the G.I. Joe Classified series line, but there's a second figure in this pack. Let's talk now about Timber. So I think Timber's the first animal I've done on the channel. Oh, no, wait, I've done Spirit's Eagle. Freedom, haven't I? Yeah, so there you go, that's an accurate statement. However, Timber has somewhat impressed me. I'm quite interested and curious about the range of articulation that's available on this figure and whether it's kind of consistent with other sort of creature or animal-related action figures out there. So if anyone's got more experience, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the animal articulation in the comments down below. It's taken me a little while to kind of get my hands around it and to get him into some poses that I'm appreciative of, mostly because of inexperience. I find it hard enough to get a two-legged human to stand up straight, and now I'm trying to line up four legs to look good and sit flush and balance. But nonetheless, the points of articulation are impressive to me. So in the head here, there's some swivel and tilt going on in the head, and then there's a hinge allowing for some up and down. And then we've got this section here, which allows for some hinge up and down like so. We've then got a joint in the center here, which allows for a bit of side to side, quite nicely replicating that sort of dog wagging, arse shaking thing that canine animals do. Then there's a joint in the shoulders and hips as well, allowing for articulation in the legs. There's a bit of in and out like so, a bit of hustle, and then obviously the swivel piece. Oh, and let's not forget the tail, actually. You can move the tail up and down, you can swivel it, you can put some wag in there. Yeah, so loads going on with Timber in terms of his articulation, and that has surprised me a great deal. It's not just some kind of bland, single-piece creature that you just plop next to your snake eyes and be done. You've got hinge in the tail, hinge in the legs. Yeah, they've really thought about the engineering on this, and I'm very impressed to see that that's the case. Like I say, I'm just a bit inexperienced with posing animals like this, so it's going to take me a bit more time to get used to it. It's the rocker in the paws and getting them all nice and even in the right sort of position so he sits flat on the floor has been a bit of a challenge in some of the photos I've tried to take, but that's me. That's a me problem, not a figure problem, So yeah, articulation-wise, Timber's got it going on as well. So that's a second thumbs up for the second day, articulation. Snake Eyes is, I suppose you could describe him as standard, as I mentioned before, but that's cool, that's fine. I'm happy with the level of articulation and posability on the human figures, but then I'm really impressed with what I've seen with Timber here. My first proper animal. I mean, does freedom count in terms of the range of articulation that's available there? It's a bird compared to a four-legged, mammal, but yeah, Timber's really impressed me. I'm very, very happy with what that adds in terms of flavour and variety and different kind of stories I can tell with my photographs and with my displays. So yeah, very pleased with the articulation, up to the usual G.I. Joe Classified Series standard. So there we go. Let's move into the third day now, and let's talk about the accessories and added value. We'll start with Timber because there's just one accessory here, and it's the swappable head. We've got this lovely kind of ferocious teeth out, growling, snarling thing going on there, obviously in the midst of combat. Again, the paint applications are really neat and tidy. Lovely work on the teeth, on the gums, on the tongue there. It's got a nice sculpt. It just communicates everything that it's trying to communicate there, and it's super straightforward to change. It's just on a peg like with the humans. You pop that off, you pop that on, and you've got an angry Timber on your hands. So, first up, let's talk about his little dust scarf, or as my wife had just called it to me, his snood, that comes with the figure. I've got to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of this with Snake Eyes. It's the same sculpt, it's exactly the same as comes with Stalker. In order to put it on him, you have to take off the shoulder strap, but it's easy enough to get over his head. I just find it sits a bit funny on his shoulders, look. It's kind of not right. It doesn't sit flush, whereas Stalker, it kind of sits the right way over the top of his chest because it was obviously designed, I think, in the first instance for use with Stalker. This just isn't working. It's just a lot of added bulk and sort of, I don't know, bunched up. It just, yeah, I don't know how to describe it. I'm struggling to articulate it. I'm recording quite late at night as well, which is not helping me with words, and yeah, it's not nice. So while it was an aesthetic element and a piece of added value that I thought, oh, that would help tell some stories with my figure, when I first saw the photos with it, the promo photos with it on, not so into it now that I've got it in hand. Then we've got some bits of small arms. He's got like a little 9mm pistol there, which is a single piece of plastic, but it's nicely sculpted, got some bits of detail on it. That comes with a suppressor here, which fits on the end of the barrel like so. There we are, which ties into his kind of sneaky ninja kind of image, but with modern weaponry. Both of these items have storage on the figure's body itself, with a holster on the leg here, which will take the pistol. And get the suppressor out with the other hand there. The suppressor like so. And then we've got a little kind of combat dagger here. Slightly curved, got a little bit of personality to it, stands out a bit different, sculpted serrated edge, looks suitably bladey, nice handle. This also has some storage on the body of the figure too, in a nice sheath here on the back of his thigh, which slides in like so, nice and neat. And these, both the holster and the knife sheath, are good and firm. That stuff's not going to fall out anytime soon. Then we've got Snake Eyes' signature weaponry, to begin with the sword, and there's a sheath for the sword as well with a peg on it, which I'll return to in a sec. These are very nice pieces of work. The sword here, for example, nice metallic paint job on the blade. Got this moulded Articulation symbol here at the hilt. Then we've got some sculpting along the handle as well to give it a nice, unique look and flavour, which is really, really cool. Then the sheath with the metallic elements, and then the leathery effect on the body of the sheath itself. Again, the Articulation symbol on there, and then it's got the peg here in order to fit into the peg hole at the back. The sword is a good fit in there as well. Nice and firm, good hold, good grip on that. You know, it takes a little bit of effort to pull it out, so it's not going to be getting lost anytime soon. Let's just talk a bit about how this fits on his back. So there's a peg hole here in the main body, and then there's a peg hole here in the strap that you need to kind of line up there, and then pop the sword through both of them in order to fits, and then, you know, just put it at whatever angle you choose. I like it that way round. However, there's an interesting phenomenon that happens when you line up the peg holes at the back, because if I turn him back round front, it kind of lifts this ever so slightly off a natural kind of resting position over his shoulder, that then makes it a little bit uncanny. So what I've found myself doing is not putting it through both the peg holes. I've let that fall like so in that more kind of natural position, and then put the sword directly into the body like that, so it sits a bit more naturally across his chest. I don't know if there's a downside to that. Maybe there is. It does sort of stick out. You got that bit of visual peg there on the back. But I found from the front, I'd rather have that in a more natural resting position. So that's something of note. And then we've got an Uzi. Snake Eyes always comes with his Uzi. Again, single moulded piece of plastic, but we've got good detail in the design, in the style, so that it's got some textural depth to it, and that just fits in his trigger finger like any other gun does. The old poke and twist jobby. There we go. And there he is with his Uzi. Now, interestingly enough, Snake Eyes does come with 3 other guns. We've got this assault rifle here, which is from the Alley Viper with the removable magazine. Again, it's a well sculpted, well designed piece of weaponry. We've then got a grappling hook launcher here with the removable grappling hook, and then the little loops if you want to pop a bit of string on your grappling hook. And again, it's all nicely molded, and it's got a sight on it and a trigger and everything. That's all nice. And then finally, the kind of weird submachine gun thing with the massive scope on the top and the removable magazine from the back there. All 3 of those previously used in the Alley Viper set, and that is great. You know, I'm loving having a bit of extra stuff chucked in for my cash. The only thing is, I feel like they're a bit surplus to requirements. Like, I'm never really going to be putting one of these in Snake Eyes' hand. At most, I'd probably use the handgun. But more than likely, it's going to be the sword and the Uzi, because they're his, as I mentioned before, his signature weapons, his signature pieces. So I'm very grateful that they've chucked these in as some bonus extras, especially for the increased price of the figures nowadays. However, I just wish there'd been a little bit more thought put into it. I don't know. I just feel like that's just, we got some spares of these in the bins at the back of the factory. Chuck them in with Snake Eyes. That'll make them feel like they're getting their money's worth. Do you know what I mean? So it's nice to have some spare bits and bobs to chuck into the box and to distribute throughout my the rest of my G.I. Joe classified collection. You know, if I want to give Tomax and Zaymot some weapons outside of the little submachine guns that they came with, then cool, I've got some stuff I can tool them up with. But I just don't think they're very on character for inclusion with Snake Eyes. So I think that, you know, again, going back to my storytelling, I suppose, really. Or maybe the grappling hook's kind of got a place. There's also nowhere on his body to store these, so they're all, you know, loose surplus elements. In fact, the Uzi hasn't got anywhere, or if it has, I've not found it. And finally, in the accessories, we've got a couple of swappable hands. We've got a kind of open palm hand here with is that like a climbing claw in it? Or is it a weapon, maybe a weapon of some sort? I've got no idea what that is, but it looks cool. And then we've got this one here that's holding the Ninja Star. The Ninja Star's been painted. It's in a nice metallic paint job there. That's a lovely piece of attention to detail. This claw piece, whether it be a weapon or a climbing accessory, has not been painted. There we go, there's the open palm with the climbing claw. You can see that it's hinged in the wrist to go forward and back rather than up and down like the gun holding trigger fingers hands are. And same again with the Ninja Star hand, it's hinged forward and back instead of up and down. But that one looks kind of nice. I'm less sure about this one, about the flat palm with the little claw weapon on it, but what I did just realise while I was recording there is that I think this might actually be the first G.I. Joe classified figure that you can pose doing a salute. Is that right? Is that correct? I'm racking my head now. Well, that's kind of cool. So I think I'm going just a little thumbs up, not all the way up. Just it's middle-ish, but slightly raised. I'm very pleased with some of the accessories and added value. I like the fact there's loads of goodies, an embarrassment of riches with it. The Uzi, the sword, Timber's swappable head, the swappable hands, all on point, all part of the storytelling that I want to do with my figure. That all works for me. That's great. That's awesome. But the extra Alley Viper bits just kind of thrown in, and the reuse of Stalker's dust scarf, I just think I don't know, I think they're just chucked in to make us think and feel like we're getting more for our money than we actually are. Because let's face facts, how many of us are going to be using our Snake Eyes with anything other than the Uzi, the sword, and the throwing star? I'm not sure many of us would, although Timber's swappable head, I can see us frequently flipping between the two to suit whatever purpose we're trying to use it for at the time. So I like the volume. I like the sentiment here of here's all this great extra stuff you get with your Snake Eyes and Timber set. That's all on point. I like the stuff that does fit in with the narrative storytelling element I want to do in my figure, but some of it just seems a bit surplus to requirements, and I'd rather different bits of plastic that are a bit more thought through or help me tell more of a story with my figure. So it's just up at high mid there, not crossing the boundary. So that's where I'm at with accessories. Figure comparison time now, folks, and here is Snake Eyes with his old Vietnam squad mate and buddy, Sergeant Stalker. I think these two make a nice little pairing, actually, in terms of colour scheme and kind of unit cohesion. They've got a good look together. They're definitely working it for me, and because of the history that they have together in that famous storyline from the comic books, I think they're a nice obvious pairing when it comes to photographing and displaying your figures. Snake Eyes is ever so slightly shorter than Stalker, but obviously I've got them with bent knees and stuff all posed up here. But yeah, nice pairing for sure. And while we're on the subject of ex-Vietnam squad mates, of course, the really obvious pairing when it comes to displaying your figures, Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, because of their intertwined history, significantly intertwined history, and the many storylines that they've been involved in together. Again, mostly from the comic book point of view, as a comic book fan. Storm Shadow clearly in more traditional ninja kind of martial arts get up there compared to Snake Eyes' more military style, modernized style, but it works. Although you're probably not getting the full appreciation of how nicely they kind of sit together and the contrast that exists between the two, because the lights are really making Storm Shadow glow there. But yeah, awesome pairing, definitely a good display option there. And then here's Snake Eyes with Sergeant Slaughter. He's a recent acquisition. He's been hanging around. He's one of my very kind of live, active figures that I'm playing around with a lot at the moment, but he's also a very good example of the kind of bulkier physique in the G.I. Joe figures. He's the larger, wider-shouldered, more muscular buck there rather than the more slender, kind of athletic ninja-style physique that we're seeing on Snake Eyes. But we definitely see that unit cohesion thing going on there in terms of colour schemes and whatnot. So you can sort of see what I was saying before about how you can kind of tie together a unit. Beachhead would be a good match, actually. Where's my Beachhead? Yeah, here he is. I found him. He was hanging out with the Valaverse guys, and not with my G.I. Joes for some reason. But yeah, he's in fact carrying a Valaverse gun. But yeah, Beachhead's a pretty good match as well. Although you can really see all that added bulk in terms of the body armour and the shins and stuff. Oh, in fact, are Beachhead's legs? No, they're different knee pads, aren't they? But there you go. It's figure comparison time. You can see how they sit together too. And here we are then. Here is Snake Eyes and Timber. This is how I've had them posed on the shelf in the interim periods when I've not had them down and being played with. You can see here, so I really need to like pin down my paw work with Timber, don't I? Also, Timber, you're a bit out of focus there, mate. There you go. Although Snake Eyes will be out of focus when it comes back round now. And this is the final thoughts section. And I think my final thoughts might surprise you, because even though I've given it sort of 2 3/4 of thumbs up across my 3 kind of review elements, there's something about this that hasn't actually blown me away quite the same as G.I. Joe Classified usually does when I crack it open. Like when I think about the excitement recently of getting my Sergeant Slaughter and getting my Zorana and cracking them open, and I've been playing and playing and playing and playing. These two, I kind of haven't been doing so much, and I'm struggling to articulate or understand why that is. I'm open to suggestions, of course, and let me know in the comments down below if you think you can perhaps suggest the reason why I don't feel quite as excited and quite as blown away by Snake Eyes and Timber as I feel like I should be doing. And it's the first time that I've had a G.I. Joe Classified figure where there's a little pang of disappointment. Like a little wee pang of disappointment, and I can't quite explain it. So even though fundamentally all the kind of key component parts that I look for in the figures are there, great aesthetic, great articulation, good value in terms of the accessories that we've received, there's something missing. There's something not quite there. And I don't know what it is. I wish I did, because maybe I could just dig it out of one of my bits boxes and sort it out. Timber is my kind of first kind of big-bodied animal. I'm very pleased with, broadly speaking, but I don't know, I just can't quite get him in a position that I like, and I'm fidgeting with the paws all the time, and I just can't figure all these great points of articulation and that huge variety in the points of articulation on Timber are just kind of making him a bit complex for my simple eye and mind and for me shaky old man hands. And maybe I think with Snake Eyes, it is just that sense, that feeling that, well, I need a Snake Eyes. He's such a fundamental part of the visual identity of the brand of G.I. Joe that I'd need a Snake Eyes. And because I just don't love the character like many others do, the figure hasn't just made me go, whoa, yes! Like I have done with, I mean, like Zorana. I'm head over heels in love with that. Can't stop posing her up, can't stop taking photos, can't stop doing stuff with her and Zartan and trying to make interesting little displays. Whereas these two, I've got them there now, and that's probably how they're going to stay for ages. It's weird, isn't it? Weird. Can't pin it down. So there we go. But please do let me know down below in the comments if you've got any thoughts as to why that might be. But also let me know if you're out there and you've been thinking about picking up this set. My review comments today have helped you make your mind up either way. Love hearing from people. It's great when folks jump on and comment on the vids. And a huge thank you to everyone who's recently subscribed as well. I can't believe how many subscribers I've got now. It's mind-blowing. But if you have enjoyed the video today, then please do take a moment to give me a like, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, which I know a big percentage of you aren't, then please do make the effort to subscribe. It really lets me know I'm going in the right direction, and helps, it's a form of feedback. It's really useful. So otherwise, keep it MoDXtra Games and Collectibles for all your action figure, trading card, statues, comic books, board game, video games, whatever. I'm just a massive man-child nerd who likes sharing his passions on the internet. And if you're like me and you worship at the broad church of nerddom, then maybe this is the channel for you. But I'll catch you around these parts sometime soon for whatever next drops on the letterbox. So see you later, folks, and have yourselves a great day.